Did you welcome the Prime Minister's strong opening address at the Safety Summit today?
Kieran, I thought the speech was fine. I guess the question really is, do we match the Prime Minister's words today with real action in the future? There were fantastic presentations all day. I've been listening all day, and what was interesting was that a number of people called for things that are already Labor policy, things that we've said that we would do, including investing more in emergency accommodation for women fleeing domestic violence, including 10 days paid domestic violence leave, and including implementing all of the recommendations of Respect at Work. We'd love to work with the government on a truly bipartisan approach to reducing and eliminating violence against women and their children in Australia, but it will take more than fine words, it will take real action.
This summit is going to inform the national plan, the next national plan due to kick off next year. And as you said, the Prime Minister gave, the speech was fine. He has copped a bit of flack. Were you surprised by that?
Well, I guess the real frustration for a lot of people, Kieran, is that, we've been saying the same things for a really long time. There have been parliamentary inquiries, there have been royal commissions, there's been a Law Reform Commission report, a Human Rights Commission report, and people who have been working in this area for years and even decades, women who've got lived experience of violence, they've all been talking about what needs to happen for a really long time. And instead of acting on those recommendations, dozens of recommendations, it feels like we're back at square one and having the whole conversation all over again. We know what needs to happen. We know so much of what needs to happen. What we need is action. Not more recommendations, but real action on the recommendations that have been made by people who have lived this for years.
The Respect at Work recommendations that we heard Anthony Albanese saying that the government needs to reconsider. In fact, the government says to us today that they are actively looking at every single one of their recommendations, even if not everything was included in the bill, recognising that some of the more complex reforms require further consideration and, importantly, stakeholder consultation. So while it's not included in the most recent legislative response, it is still on their agenda. Are you pleased with that? Are you relieved that the government is still looking at each and every one of Kate Jenkins' proposals?
They've had this report since 2020. Like, who is going to do the consultation if it's not the government? Who's going to move this forward if it's not the government? Just last week, they voted against recommendations like putting a positive duty of care on employers to provide a safe workplace, like supporting working women's centres, giving more support to the places that someone who is being sexually harassed would go to for advice or confidential advice on what they can do. Now, they voted against having a prohibition on sexual harassment in industrial relations laws. Like, they've had the report since 2020. Who do they think is going to do the consultation if not them?
True, and while there's been a further delay, you did say you want bipartisanship. How serious is that from Labor in terms of actually sitting down and saying we have to make sure that everyone is working in the same direction here to change? We talk about the pandemic. What about this epidemic which is hitting our nation and has done for so long, far too long?
Absolutely, and that's why we are participating in this summit. It's why we spoke to the Attorney-General about the changes that we wanted to see with Respect at Work. We wanted the government to move the amendments. We would have been happy if the government had taken the lead on strengthening that legislation. It's why we have asked the government on multiple occasions in the Parliament to back 10 days paid domestic violence leave. It would be fantastic if we could come out of this summit tomorrow agreeing on providing more emergency accommodation for women and children fleeing violence. The question too often is asked, why didn't she leave? When the real question should be, where would she go? Surely this is something that we can all agree on. Surely it's something we can all agree on, that we need more emergency accommodation for people who are fleeing domestic violence.